Okay, so we're going to talk about rounding today. So in order to round, we are only going to worry about rounding to 3 different spots. We're going to talk about rounding to the tenths, rounding to the hundredths, and rounding to the thousandths. So if I gave you guys the number 25.125, I need to know what is each number called. So for instance, this 2 right here, what spot is that 2 in? This 2 is in the tens. Okay, what about the first 5? The 5 is in what spot? The ones. Can somebody tell me what else we might call that? It's also called a what? Like if I got rid of this, that would also be called what we consider a whole number. So if you see round to the nearest whole number, they're talking about the ones place. So ones means ones or whole number. Typically, the older you get, they say whole number. They'll stop saying the ones place. Okay, what about this 1 right here? What spot is this 1 in? Eva? The tenths. And this 2, what spot's this 2 in then? Hundredths. And last but not least, what is it, everyone? 1,000. So notice there's no such thing as once place, right? We skipped that one. So it's tenths, hundredths, thousandths. You will typically round to tenths and hundredths. Those are your 2 that you will typically round to. Is that understood? I want you to then write underneath the hundredths in parentheses, I want you to write cent. Because if we're working with money, they will say round to the nearest cent. Cent means thousandths. So please make sure cent and hundredths. Cent and hundredths mean the same thing. They just say cent when dealing with money. Because there's always 2 numbers after a decimal with money, right guys? Questions on place value. All right, let's do a couple of rounding questions. We're going to do whole number. I'm going to just scratch this place value out and write rounding. We're going to do some whole number rounding. If I want you to round to the nearest whole number. Okay, let's do 26.71 or 26 and 71 hundredths. If I want to round to the nearest whole number, that means I don't want a decimal in my answer. Is that understood? Okay, so remember yourself, when you want to do that, you look at your whole number spot. The 6 is in my whole number spot, and I'm looking to that number that's directly behind it, which is that 7. Does the 7 tell me to move my number up or to stay the same? So 26 should become a what? And what do I do with the numbers that are behind the decimal? Get rid of them. Do I need to add zeros? No, I want this to be my answer. Now, if you add a decimal and zeros after it, are you still right? Yes, but I prefer you not do that. Is that understood? Questions so far? All right, let's try this one. 23.42 or 23 and 42 hundredths. What number do we look at, everyone? I look at the 3, and the 3 looks at the, and the 4 tells the 3 to stay the same. Technically, it's going down because you're kind of going down. So what's my answer, everyone? 23. Okay, let's do one more. What if I gave you 119 and 7/10? 119 and 7/10. What number is in my whole number spot? And the 9 looks at the, and the 7 tells the 9 to do what? Well, if 9 goes up, it becomes a what? A 10. So what's that going to change to my answer? What should my answer then be, everyone? 120. Because you're saying 119 needs to go up, so 119 becomes 120. Questions on rounding to the nearest whole number? Okay, let's do a couple of rounding questions with decimals. So I'm just going to scratch that part out, and I'm just going to label it rounding decimals. Zoom in a bit here. Okay, so if I want to round decimals, let's say I give you the number 13.718. I want you to round this number to the nearest tenth. What number is in the tenths place? What number, everyone? So I underline that 7. The 7 looks at what number? And the 1 tells the 7 to go up or stay the same. So I keep everything in front of it, which means I keep the 13, don't change it. Keep that decimal point, and then you just told me to keep the 7, so I keep the 7, and what happens to the 1 and the 8? They change to 0, they go bye-bye. I don't want the zeros, but if you put them, I will not mark them wrong. Is that clear? But this is what I want for your answer. Questions? Okay, same number. I give you 13.718. I want you to round to the nearest hundredths this time, the nearest hundredths. What number is in the hundredths place? And the 1 looks at the, and the 8 tells the 1 to. So what should my answer read, everyone? 13 and 72 hundredths, or 13.72. And I don't need that 0, but if you put it, you are not wrong. Questions? Last one. $13.099. I want you to round to the nearest hundredths place. Nearest hundredths place. What number is in the hundredths spot? And the 9 looks at the what? And that 9 tells that 9 to? Okay, so if this 9 tells this 9 to go up, what happens to this 9? It turns into a 10, right? So then how should my answer read? I will accept 13.1, but that 1's in the 10th spot, right? So what else would I accept? Yeah, technically, if you want to be technically correct, you'd add that 0 in because it's in the 10th spot. Does that make sense? But these both mean the same exact thing, so you would be right either way. But the second one is technically the 10th place. Eva.
Have you ever had kids that put like unlimited zeros after their answer?
No, because I think that would annoy me, and they'd never want to do that again after I told them to stop. or threaten them with after school or something like that. All right, I'm going to stop my recording of this lesson. So any questions on this before I stop it?